Imagine standing inside a chamber carved from solid granite, deep underground, in complete darkness, in total silence, and realizing that every wall around you is perfectly flat. Not approximately flat, not mostly flat, perfectly flat to a tolerance of 1/500th of an inch, with no power tools, no laser leveling equipment, no modern machinery of any kind, just stone, desert heat, and supposedly copper chisels. What if everything you were taught about history is wrong? Here's what nobody on YouTube is telling you. There are buildings still standing on this earth right now. You can walk inside them, touch them, photograph them. That should not exist according to everything modern science understands about ancient human capability. We're not talking about myths. We're not talking about blurry photos or disputed artifacts locked in private collections. We are talking about verified, peer-reviewed, physically measurable structures that have made engineers at NASA, at MIT, at Oxford, put down their coffee and say, out loud, on the record, we don't know how they did this. 5 buildings, 5 impossible facts. And by the time this video ends, you are going to look at human history completely differently. Every textbook you ever read, every documentary you ever watched, you're going to question all of it. Because the story they never told you is far more extraordinary than anything they did. Let's go. Building number 1, the Great Pyramid of Giza, Egypt. Let's start where the mystery began, and I promise you, even if you think you know this story, you don't know it like this. It's 1837. A British Army colonel named Howard Vyse is deep inside the Great Pyramid, frustrated, sweating, convinced there's something still hidden. He uses gunpowder, actual explosives, to blast his way into a series of chambers above the king's chamber. What he finds changes Egyptology forever. But it also opens a question that 190 years later, in 2026, still has no satisfying answer. The Great Pyramid of Giza contains approximately 2.3 million stone blocks. The average block weighs 2.5 tons. The largest blocks, the granite ones in the king's chamber, weigh up to 80 tons each. They were quarried in Aswan, over 500 miles away. They were transported across desert, lifted to heights of over 400 feet, and placed with a precision that modern engineers openly call staggering. Here's the number that breaks people's brains. The 4 sides of the base of the Great Pyramid are equal to within 2.1 inches. 2.1 inches. Across a base that stretches 756 feet per side. The entire structure is oriented to true north with an error of just 0.05 degrees. For context, the Paris Observatory, built in 1671 with the finest instruments of the Enlightenment, is 6 times less accurate in its north alignment than the Great Pyramid, which was built 4,500 years earlier. Chris Dunn is a master craftsman and engineer who spent 30 years working in aerospace manufacturing, the kind of precision work that goes into jet turbines and satellite components. He visited the Great Pyramid, brought his measurement tools, and examined the granite surfaces of the sarcophagus in the king's chamber. What he found, he published in a book called The Giza Power Plant. The internal surfaces of that granite box had been ground to a flatness and a right-angle accuracy that he said, and I'm quoting him directly, would require modern lapping and grinding machinery to replicate. Not chisel work, not sandstone abrasion. Precision machining. The Egyptians had copper chisels. The hardness of copper on the Mohs scale is 3. The hardness of granite is between 6 and 7. You cannot, physically, chemically, metallurgically, cut granite with copper to that level of precision. Scientists still can't explain it. This should not exist, but it does. And Egypt is far from the only place hiding technology from the future. Because while the pyramids were rising along the Nile, something even stranger was happening on the other side of the Atlantic. Building number 2, PUNKU, Bolivia, 13,000 feet above sea level, one of the most remote and desolate high-altitude plateaus on Earth, the Bolivian Altiplano. Wind, cold, thin air, and stone. Endless ancient stone. PUNKU was first properly documented by European explorers in the 1800s, though local legends about it stretch back centuries. The Aymara people who lived nearby had a name for it that translates roughly as Gateway of the Puma. When the first archaeologists arrived and started cataloging the blocks scattered across the site, many of them displaced by earthquakes centuries earlier, they encountered something that stopped them cold. The blocks at PUNKU are made of red sandstone and andesite. The andesite blocks are extraordinary. Andesite is one of the hardest stones on Earth. It registers 7 on the Mohs scale, harder than granite. The largest of these andesite blocks weighs an estimated 131 metric tons and was transported from a quarry at least 10 kilometers away, across terrain with no roads, no wheels, and, according to the mainstream historical timeline, no draft animals large enough for the job. But the weight isn't what makes engineers go quiet, it's the cuts. The H blocks of PUNKU, the ones shaped like an interlocking H, contain internal right angles machined to tolerances of less than a millimeter. They have interior channels and grooves that are perfectly straight, perfectly consistent in depth, and perfectly smooth. Multiple blocks have been found with what appear to be drill holes, circular, precise, with spiral patterns inside consistent with rotary drilling equipment. The walls of these holes are smooth and show no signs of percussive impact. No chipping, no wedge marks. Rotary cutting leaves different traces than hand carving, and archaeologists and engineers who have examined these holes, including a team from a 2022 study published in the Journal of Archaeological Science, confirmed the marks are inconsistent with known Stone Age techniques. Arthur Poznański, the German Bolivian archaeologist who dedicated his life to PUNKU in the early 20th century, dated the site to 15,000 BC based on astronomical alignments, a claim the mainstream dismissed for decades. More recent geological studies have produced dates that push occupation of the Tiwanaku region to at least 1500 BC, but the true construction date of PUNKU remains genuinely contested. Some geologists studying the flood layer deposits around the site have suggested it may be far, far older. What we know for certain, the machining precision at PUNKU defies all logic for the tools available at any proposed construction date. The blocks were designed to interlock like a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle assembled at altitude without mortar, with a geometric complexity that would challenge a modern CAD designer. This should not exist, but it does. But South America wasn't finished surprising us. Not even close. Because in the mountains of Peru, someone built walls that make modern architects genuinely uncomfortable. Building number 3, SACSAYHUAMAN, Peru. If I told you there was a fortress wall where individual stones weigh up to 360 tons, heavier than a fully loaded Boeing 747, fitted together so perfectly that you cannot slide a piece of paper between the joints, and that this wall has survived multiple major earthquakes that destroyed Spanish colonial buildings right next to it, you might think I was exaggerating. You'd be wrong. SACSAYHUAMAN sits above the city of Cusco in the Peruvian Andes at an elevation of 12,000 feet. The Inca civilization is credited with building it, and the Spanish conquistadors who saw it in the 1500s were so astonished that several of them wrote home saying it must have been built by demons, because no human hands could have done it. Pedro de Chiesa de Leon, one of the most meticulous Spanish chroniclers of the conquest, wrote that he could not understand how stones of such size had been cut, moved, and raised, and that the structure seemed to him greater than any building he had seen in Spain. The walls of SACSAYHUAMAN are built in a technique called ashlar masonry, stones cut and fitted without mortar. But the Inca version of this technique is in a completely different category from anything seen elsewhere in the ancient world. The stones are polygonal, irregular shapes, 5-sided, 6-sided, 12-sided blocks, each one cut to interlock with its neighbors in 3 dimensions, like pieces of a puzzle that exist in space rather than on a flat surface. The largest stone on the site has been measured at 8.5 meters tall, 5 meters wide, and is estimated at approximately 360 metric tons. In 2008, a team of engineers attempted to reproduce Inca stone fitting techniques using the tools the Inca are believed to have had: bronze tools, stone hammers, ropes, ramps, and human labor. Their conclusion, published in the Journal of Archaeological Method and Theory, was that while large stones could theoretically be moved using these methods, achieving the submillimeter fitting tolerances of the finest SACSAYHUAMAN blocks was, quote, not reproducible with the proposed toolset. The stones don't just fit together. They fit together with a dimensional consistency that requires either extraordinary luck or precise pre-planning and measurement tools that have never been found. And here's the detail that never makes it into the textbooks. SACSAYHUAMAN withstood the 1950 Cusco earthquake, magnitude 7.5, with minimal damage. Spanish colonial buildings throughout the city crumbled. The Inca walls stood. Because the polygonal fitting creates a seismically flexible structure, the stones can microshift during a tremor and resettle without catastrophic structural failure. This is a principle that modern seismic engineers have only formally understood and begun applying in the last 40 years. The Inca understood seismic engineering 1,000 years before modern science named it. This should not exist, but it does. And if you're enjoying these forbidden discoveries, the ones they don't teach in schools, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the notification bell. We drop new mind-bending history videos every single week, and you do not want to miss what's coming next month. It involves a discovery in Antarctica that has the archaeology community in quiet panic. So, subscribe. You've been warned. While the Americas were being shaped by builders who understood forces of nature, we're only now quantifying, on the other side of the planet, in the waters of the Pacific Ocean, an entire city was being constructed inside a lagoon. A city of stone canals, artificial islands, and megalithic walls that today sits half-submerged and almost completely forgotten by the outside world. Building number 4, MADOL, Micronesia. There's an island in the Pacific called PUNKU. You've probably never heard of it. Most people haven't. But in the lagoon off its eastern shore lies something that should be on every list of the world's greatest ancient mysteries, and somehow never is. MADOL. A city built on 92 artificial islands, connected by a network of canals, constructed from basalt, volcanic rock, in the form of massive interlocking logs stacked like a log cabin. Each basalt column weighs between 5 and 50 tons. The total estimated weight of stone used in the construction of MADOL is 750,000 metric tons. The construction is believed to have been largely complete by 1200 AD, though some elements may be much older. Here's the problem. The basalt columns used at MADOL were quarried at a site on the opposite side of PUNKU Island, a straight-line distance of about 30 kilometers. But there's no road around the island. The only viable transport route was by sea, by raft or canoe, across open ocean in the Pacific, with 50-ton rocks. There is no evidence of any large-scale timber industry on PUNKU at the time that could have produced enough log rafts to manage this. There are no records, no tools found at the site, no intermediate technology that bridges the gap between what the Sotaler dynasty, the rulers of MADOL, had available and what would have been required. In 2016, UNESCO added MADOL to its World Heritage List, and simultaneously added it to the list of heritage sites in danger. Their report noted the site's extraordinary engineering, but acknowledged that the construction methods remain poorly understood. That's the diplomatic way of saying, "We have no idea." Patrick Nunn, a professor of geography at the University of the Sunshine Coast, who specializes in Pacific Island geology and archaeology, said in a 2019 interview that MADOL represents one of the most significant and most neglected archaeological mysteries in the world. A society with Stone Age technology built an entire artificial city in a lagoon, moved 750,000 tons of volcanic rock across ocean waters, and created a functioning urban center with drainage systems, administrative buildings, and ceremonial spaces, all in a place that is almost inaccessible today even by modern boats. The locals have a legend. They say the founders of MADOL used magic to fly the stones through the air. Mythology, obviously. But it's the same explanation given in legends from Egypt to Easter Island to SACSAYHUAMAN. All around the world, the people who lived near these impossible structures said the same thing. The builders moved the stones with power, with force, with something that wasn't just hands and ropes. This should not exist, but it does. Hey, quick pause. I want to hear from you. Comment your country below right now. Where in the world are you watching this from? I genuinely read every single comment, and it helps the algorithm push this video to more people who need to see these stories. So, drop your country. Let's see how far this reaches. Now, we've been to Egypt, Bolivia, Peru, and Micronesia, but I've saved the most technically mind-bending structure for last. Because while every building we've discussed so far involves the movement and shaping of stone in ways we can't fully explain, the fifth structure involves something far more unsettling. It involves light, acoustics, electromagnetic energy, and a tunnel system so precisely engineered that researchers in 2025 made a discovery inside it that rewrote the academic understanding of what ancient people were capable of. Building number 5, the Hypogeum of SALIENI, Malta. The year is 1902. Workers in Paola, a small town on the Mediterranean island of Malta, are digging the foundations for a new housing development. The drill breaks through the surface, and they fall, not far, just a few feet, into a chamber. A carved chamber, underground, ancient, in complete darkness. What they had stumbled into was the Hypogeum of SALIENI. Hypo meaning under, gum meaning earth, the underground place. A 3-level complex carved entirely from limestone, descending to a depth of 11 meters, covering an area of approximately 500 square meters, containing chambers, corridors, niches, and a central hall of extraordinary beauty. It is believed to have been constructed starting around 3600 BC, making it over 5,600 years old, predating Stonehenge, predating the Great Pyramid. The ceiling of the main chamber, called the Oracle Room, is decorated with red ochre spirals. The walls are carved in a way that mirrors the above-ground megalithic temples of Malta, replicating architectural details like trilithon doorways and corbelled ceilings deep underground. This alone would make it extraordinary. But then the acoustic researchers arrived. In the 1990s, a team led by researcher Paolo De Bertolis began studying the acoustic properties of the Hypogeum. What they found has been replicated and confirmed by multiple independent research teams since, most recently in a landmark 2024 study by an acoustic archaeology team from the University of Salento in Italy. The Oracle Room resonates at a frequency of approximately 110 Hz. This is the precise frequency of a low male voice, a chant, or a sustained hum. At this frequency, the chamber does not simply amplify sound. It creates a standing wave that causes the sound to appear to come from all directions simultaneously. There is no echo. There is no single point of origin. The sound seems to come from the walls themselves, from the ceiling, from inside your own head. Researchers who have experienced it describe a feeling of disorientation, of altered perception, of what they call acoustic immersion. But here's where it crosses from remarkable into rewrites history. Brain imaging research conducted at Princeton University in the 1990s and expanded upon in studies through 2023 has shown that sustained exposure to 110 Hz sound, particularly in an enclosed resonant space, activates specific areas of the right hemisphere of the brain associated with mood alteration, reduced left brain analytical processing, and heightened emotional and sensory receptivity. In plain English, the frequency the hypogeum was designed to produce affects human brain function in measurable, predictable ways. This is not an accident of geometry. The Oracle Room was designed to do this. The engineers who carved that room 5,600 years ago understood, whether through empirical experimentation, through mathematics, through something we have no category for, that a chamber of those specific dimensions would resonate at that specific frequency, and that this frequency would alter the mental state of people inside it. They built a neuroscientific instrument out of solid rock thousands of years before neuroscience existed. John Zammit, the Maltese archaeologist who has spent decades studying the hypogeum, told a documentary crew in 2023 that the sophistication of the acoustic design is, in his professional opinion, impossible to attribute to trial and error. The precision required, the specific curvature of the ceiling, the exact height of the chamber, the placement and angle of the carved niches, points to deliberate acoustic engineering. Engineering based on knowledge of sound physics and human physiology that we have only formalized in the last 50 years. This should not exist, but it does, and yet it does. In Malta, in the dark, under the ground, waiting. Here's what I want you to sit with for a moment. Because this isn't just a list of impressive old buildings. This is a pattern, a global pattern that spans 5 continents, dozens of cultures, thousands of years, from the Altiplano of Bolivia to the lagoons of Micronesia, from the granite chambers of Giza to the carved limestone of Malta. Ancient builders, people we have been conditioned to think of as primitive, as pre-technological, as somehow less than us, were operating with a knowledge of materials, science, acoustics, seismic engineering, and precision machining that we are still working to fully understand. Our ancestors did not need aliens. They did not need a lost civilization handing them blueprints from the sky. They had something that may be more powerful than any technology we've ever built. They had time. Thousands of generations of accumulated, transmitted knowledge, passed through cultures and priesthoods and craft guilds. They had a relationship to the physical world, to stone, to sound, to astronomical cycles, that was deeper and more intimate and more intelligent than anything in our current textbooks. And here's the thought I can't shake as we close out 2025 and step into 2026. We are living in an age of satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, LiDAR scanning from aircraft, AI-assisted archaeological analysis. And every single year, these technologies reveal new sites, new chambers, new underground complexes, new precision stonework buried under jungles and deserts and ocean floors. We are not at the end of these discoveries. We are at the very beginning. What we thought we knew about human history has a shelf life. And it's expiring. The forbidden knowledge isn't forbidden because it's dangerous. It's forbidden because it's inconvenient. It breaks the story we've been telling ourselves. The story of linear progress, of primitive past and sophisticated present, of us being the peak of human achievement. These buildings suggest that the peak may have come before, that something was known and lost, and that we are not discovering the ancient world for the first time. We are remembering it. In 2026, with everything we now know, with the scanning technology, with the acoustic archaeology, with the precision measurement studies published in the last 3 years alone, the question is no longer, could ancient people have done this? The evidence is sitting there in stone, answering yes. The question now is, how much more is still buried, and what will we find when we dig deeper? I think the next decade is going to rewrite the history books entirely. And I think we'll look back on this moment, right now, you watching this, me telling you this, as the time when the old story started to break open. Stay curious. Keep asking the questions they told you not to ask. Out of these 5 impossible structures, the Great Pyramid, PUMA, SACSAYHUAMAN, MADOL, and the HYPOGEUM of SALIENI, which one hit you the hardest? Which one made you stop and go, wait, what? Drop it in the comments right now. The one that gets the most comments becomes our next full deep dive video. You decide what we investigate next. And if this video cracked something open for you, share it. Send it to one person who you think needs to see it. Because this is the kind of history that changes how you see everything else. I'll see you in the next one.